Hello and welcome to the WriteCome.com podcast, where we help you to make money from your words. Each episode will be sharing tips, tricks, and strategies you can use to make more money from your writing, publishing, and marketing to your fans and audience. Let's get started with your host, Barry J. McDonald.
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very, very welcome to this podcast episode from WriteCome.com. And today I want to ask you, what's in a name? Now, the other day, a friend of ours had got on to my wife, Catherine, and had told her that she had changed her name. Now, I don't know what it's like in other parts of the world and how you actually go about changing your name, but in the UK and that you can do a thing, deed poll. Now, I don't know too much about it. I've never ever changed my name, but she had told Catherine that she had changed her name to something completely different. Now, at the time, Catherine just was kind of in shock. She kind of was, taken aback, and then she started laughing about it, and then she was asking, well, is she on the run from the police or something like that? Is that why she's changing her name? And it was only after that conversation had taken place, I was actually thinking to myself, what it really is in a name. Now, if you've been listening to the podcast at all recently, you probably have heard me go on about a couple of things in recent episodes about kind of limiting yourself and putting kind of mental blinkers on your mind because you're thinking a certain way. And one of the ways that you can actually probably can put blinkers on you or can kind of limit you in what you do is your name. Now, when it comes to me writing fiction or coming up with fictional characters, that is sometimes one of the best places I can get as much kind of back history or kind of information about a character that I'm about to write about, and that is in their name. So, for example, if I was going to come up with a fictional character and I was going to call it maybe Barry or whatever, I would think to myself, why did these parents call their child Barry? Is there a particular reason behind it? Is it because maybe they had a great uncle whose name was Barry, and maybe that he was a multimillionaire, and if they felt maybe that if they called him Barry, that there was a good chance now that this uncle would probably leave their money to him? Or is it because of maybe a celebrity at the time? Or is it because it's a new name that, not many people are called? So there's all these different questions I would ask myself if I was coming up with a fictional character. What does that name mean to that person? Even when they're grown up and they have that name, do they like the name Barry? Are they bullied because of the name Barry? Do people kind of shorten it, and do they call themselves something else? So in my own case here, a lot of people sometimes kind of shorten it down and call me the nickname Bazza. So I think that's more of an English thing than anything else. So Gary is Gaza and Barry is Bazza. So I have been called Bazza a couple of times due to being called Barry. But as I said, when it comes to creating a fictional character, I sometimes can get a lot of content or a lot of ideas out of just coming up with a name. Now, when it comes to your own name, are you kind of living out your life, due to whatever kind of mental kind of constraints or limits you're putting on your mind? Are you, for example, again going back to my name, am I living out the typical life a Barry would live out? Now, that probably seems like a hard question maybe to get your head around, but when you do kind of carry a name with you for so long, people probably, once they hear your name, probably look at you a certain way. If I was called some kind of fancy or maybe some name that was in, that wouldn't really come up much in conversation, if it was a kind of exotic name or something like that, when I was being referred to by that name over and over again over the years, I would probably get the same reaction from strangers in that they might say that's a weird name or that's a nice name or whatever. So I assume probably people who come into my life and find out my name is Barry probably look at me in a certain type of way, and because of that I have probably taken on that unconsciously, those kind of characteristics that those people are looking at me or coming at me with my name Barry. If I change my name maybe to Frank, if this was Frank here on this podcast, would you look at me in a completely different way? Now, I want you to think about that for a moment. You probably, there is probably a part of you would probably say, I would probably look at Frank in a completely different way than Barry. And that's just simply from the name. Nothing else would change about me, my height, my weight, anything else, my features or whatever. But the name can make a difference. So, as I said, when that came up in conversation the other day that Catherine's friend had changed her name, as Catherine said, she was completely shocked by it. But I want you to think about that now. What way your name is right now. Is it kind of limiting you in any way? Again, even going back to fiction writing, some people who get into fiction writing, this was something I had done before, but it wasn't because of the name. Some people take on a pen name. So, for example, when I was doing my romance fiction, I felt that, I would probably seen in a better light if I was seen as a female writer. So I changed my name to Catherine Harper, and my romance books kind of came under that pen name. So some people will kind of go under a pen name because, the reader will look at them in a completely different way. And again, too, when you kind of go under a pen name, it does kind of free you up from probably all your past history, what you think about yourself or whatever, depending on whatever type of writing you were doing. For example, you could be maybe using your own name in your books, but if you were going to do maybe, exotic or erotic or some kind of more grown up writing, do you think you could write the same fiction having the same name as yourself, or would you need to kind of come up with a pen name that you could hide behind, but one that would probably make you feel, I don't know, more sexier about yourself, or kind of maybe free you up mentally, maybe kind of free up your writing, that you would feel comfortable writing in an erotic or exotic way or whatever, or come up with a lot of kind of sexual content for your books, whatever, by having a different pen name. So as I said, like, a pen name can make a big difference. Now, you might think maybe this is all a little bit weird and all that, but even if we look at some of the celebrities, in the real world, why did Prince at one stage change his name to Symbol? Now, a lot of people probably slagged him off at the time and probably said, he's just somebody who is lost a run of himself, he's got more money than sense, and to call yourself a kind of a squiggle or a symbol is just a kind of height of stupidity. But I'm sure him being called Symbol rather than Prince probably freed him up to go in maybe a creative direction, maybe that he hasn't gone on before. And again, I'm not a great big follower of Prince, so I don't actually know what the albums were like when he did change his name to Symbol. Maybe it didn't work out, maybe that's why he went back to being Prince again. But I'm sure the content that he was probably creating, the ideas he was coming up with better, he was coming at them from a completely different angle, because he was going with this kind of name, Symbol, or with a squiggle or whatever it was, compared to his own name. And even if you look at Beyonce, somebody who is well respected and has a lot of followers, she for a while there went on under the name of Sasha Fierce. And I'm sure the type of albums, she released under that name were completely different than maybe the original kind of Beyonce albums. She probably came up with completely different songs, and again, it probably freed her up mentally to kind of go in creative directions that, she was kind of shaking off her old identity, and it allowed her to go in a certain direction because she took on a certain name. Now, that doesn't mean I want you to race off to Deedpoll or race off to wherever department in your country goes about changing names or whatever, but maybe just consider, maybe, is your name limiting you in what you are allowing yourself to do? Maybe it has maybe kind of mentally blocked you in, or you are following the kind of path, as I said, that a typical Barry would go, or your own name, the type of person you are, would kind of go down. And maybe it might be time maybe to consider, maybe, could you have maybe a kind of a work name or a kind of pen name? Now, again, you mightn't be going into fiction writing, so you probably wouldn't need a pen name, but maybe if you sat down to the laptop today and maybe you were going to create some course, or you were going to create some videos, rather than actually just thinking of yourself as you, maybe you could take on a kind of persona. Again, if you want to bring that into your work, or if you want to kind of name all your work, or just take credit for all your work on that persona, well, then you probably could. But if you'd like to maybe just to kind of free your mind up, rather than when you sit down at the laptop today or whatever you're doing today, rather than thinking of yourself, with the kind of identity you have right now, maybe think up something maybe more extravagant, or again, maybe take on maybe a name maybe from somebody who is a hero of yours, or a celebrity of yours, or somebody who is really, really creative, or somebody that you admire, and maybe just kind of keep their mind or their name in mind when you are actually doing your work to do, and just see, does it make a difference? Because it might be a small thing, but as I said, when you have like offline artists and music and that going on their different names, and then you even have actors, like how many actors, are nowadays maybe haven't got their original name, have taken on some kind of name or whatever, but a lot of them probably have gone down a completely different route, by shaking off the old identity of their name. Has allowed them to be more creative, maybe more courageous, and maybe done things maybe that they would have never done before, because they aren't sharing or using their current name or their common name, and kind of, this kind of frees them up. So keep that in mind today. What is it in a name? Is it something that is helping you right now, or is it something that's limiting you? Is it something maybe you could think about changing? Again, you don't have to do it permanently, but maybe it could be something that, when you go into your work today, just keep that in mind today. I am such and such a person. When you're actually writing or creating, and actually try and shake off maybe that kind of less courageous persona or less courageous personality that you have right now, or whatever kind of thing that could be keeping you small, and maybe by taking on this kind of fake name just for now as you're doing your work, see does it make a difference in what you do, and how courageous you are, how it kind of frees you up, how it kind of shakes off maybe any kind of mental baggage that you have on yourself right now. So hope that's helped somebody out. But again, it's just something that had come up in conversation, and it's only when I actually thought about it, in the conversation with Catherine, when you do change your name, you probably do look at life in a different way, and, it might be a clean slate that you might need. So, as always, if you'd like to know more about me, or if you'd like to know more about Writecome, if you go to Google, Facebook, iTunes, or whatever, if you do a search for Writecome, that's WRITECOME.com, or if you'd like to find more of these podcast episodes, again, go over to iTunes or wherever you subscribe your podcast to, and just click on subscribe, and I'll send the next couple of episodes on to you. And as always, if you'd like to reach out to me personally, you can send an email to barryjmcdonald@gmail.com. And as always, thanks for sharing your time again today. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like more from the Writecome.com podcast, be sure to subscribe now for more tips, tricks, and ideas you can use to make more money from your words. See you in the next episode.